A couple of years ago, I went to the Grand Canyon during the summertime on a road trip with my best friend, Amanda. I had never been to the Grand Canyon before, but she had been there once when she was younger. We drove on this one road for the longest time that led to the park. Once we entered, we followed another road into one of the main parking lots. I was surprised at how big the park was. There are campsites and several trails. When we got there were quite a few other people. We went down one trail to see the actual canyon. There are walking trails going alongside it and many different lookout areas. We walked along and stopped at several of those lookout spots, many of which were pretty crowded. At probably the second one, I remember being approached by this one guy. He was a man, sort of big with dark hair, and he said hi to me. He told me that his name was Joe. Then he asked if Amanda and I would be interested in going on a tour, saying that he drove a guided tour. I wasn't interested and said no, thanks. Then he asked if I was sure, and I said yes. After that, he walked away. We took a bunch of pictures and then moved along. Probably about 15 minutes later, we reached another overlook area. There were other people here as well, but not quite as many. I noticed the same guy, Joe, and he was walking over. Then he approached us again. This time, he said that he forgot to mention that the tour was free because somebody else had canceled. He asked once more if we wanted to go. I thought about it for a second but still didn't want to go and said no to him. He asked if we were sure once more, and we said yes. Then he walked away again. It seemed a little bit strange. He wasn't going around and asking anybody else, just us. He walked away and back onto a path, and Amanda and I stayed at the lookout spot for a couple more minutes. After that, we kept walking along the canyon and looking out at different viewpoints. I remember that sometime later, we stopped at a spot and saw Joe yet again, a little ways away. I was afraid that he was going to approach us once more, but he didn't. He was with another guy, and they were just kind of standing around. Amanda and I then walked in another direction. There were a few paths that went through some nearby areas, and not as many people were on them. We walked through a couple of the paths. I remember about halfway through one of the trails that we went on, I saw Joe again. He was walking a ways behind us. That's when I started to really get creeped out by him. Still, it didn't seem like too big of a deal, because there were some other people around, and the paths were not super wooded or anything. We later went back to the canyon again and didn't see him. Then we finished up at the gift shop, and each of us got some souvenirs. Guess who I saw again? Joe, and he was with his friend. He did not approach us, but it was just odd to see him there. Were they following us? I thought they had tours to give, and they clearly were not. By the time we got our souvenirs, it was starting to get late, and the sun was setting. We decided to drive back, because our hotel was over an hour away. We went back to my car, in what I assume was the main parking lot, because it was pretty large. When we were getting to my car, I saw the two guys. They were a long ways away, and just entering the parking lot. I kept an eye on them because I was suspicious. I noticed them look over at us, and then they went to an SUV, which was sort of old-looking, and parked on the other side of the lot. Was that what they were supposed to be giving tours in? I wasn't really buying the tour story at all, and was glad that we didn't say yes to that. We got inside my car and then started to leave, but as we were driving down the road to go out of the park, the SUV that the guys were driving went behind us. Now, if my memory is correct, there's really just one main highway that leads to and from the Grand Canyon, and there isn't a whole lot on it for like an hour. But just outside of the park, there are a few restaurants and gas stations. We decided to get some gas because my car's tank was a little low, and we didn't know where the next opportunity to fill up would be. As we pulled into the gas station, the guys pulled in behind us. Now we were really concerned. I started filling my car with gas, and the SUV parked in a spot on the side. Nobody got out. After I was done fueling, Amanda and I went inside the store. We were going to get some snacks. The gas station was pretty large inside, and we were looking through stuff, but we noticed the same two guys come inside. We tried avoiding them, and they didn't seem to be trying to approach us or anything, but I still knew that it wasn't a coincidence that they were here. We got a few things, and then left the store. When we did, we noticed the guys leaving right behind us. We hurried and quickly got to the car and went inside. The guys went back to their SUV. Then I left, and unfortunately, they followed right after us. We both went onto the main highway leaving the Grand Canyon. There were not really any exits, but I tried slowing down, speeding up, and changing lanes. Whatever I did, the SUV remained right behind me. We were thinking of what to do. After a while, we got the idea to drive to a police station. Unfortunately, there wasn't one for a while. Over the next few minutes, things remained the same. We drove until we were finally off the highway and then had directions to the nearest police station. We drove there, and luckily, the SUV did not follow us in. After that, we reported what happened and gave a description of the guys. However, we did not get a license plate number of their SUV. After that, we were able to make it back to our hotel all right. I'm really glad that we got away from those guys. Several years ago, I was traveling for work by myself. I was on a bit of a road trip, which took me through several different states. On the way back home, I was passing through some of South Dakota, where I'd never been before. I knew Mount Rushmore was there, so I decided to go a little out of my way to see it. I followed the directions to the park and remember that I got there sometime in the afternoon. It was a little bit later. But I didn't have a lot of control over that. There was enough daylight that I should still get to see it. The park has a few different parking lots, some on different levels. I went to one lot that was at the top, and there was a quiet road nearby with some trees on the other side. There were a decent number of other cars in the parking lot when I got there, but it wasn't packed. After parking, I got out and walked over to the park. It wasn't that far of a walk or anything. I soon was able to see the mountain, and most of the other people were over there as well. I stayed there for a while, just looking at the view and taking pictures. Many people started to head out not long after I got there. Before I knew it, I was one of the only people left. The sun was setting, and I decided to go back and hit the road. I left the park and walked back out to the parking lot where my car was. I remember that when I was walking over to the parking lot, I didn't see anybody else around. I had seen some other people going into one of the parking lots on the other side. My car was one of probably less than 10 that were still there. As I was walking, something caught my eye, and I also heard a noise. It was coming from across the quiet road and just inside the woods. I looked over and barely saw a tree branch moving, but I did not see anything else. I thought that it might be some kind of animal. There are a lot of cool wild animals in that area, so I stopped and kept looking. I didn't see anything until I saw a man step out. I thought this was weird, but it was even weirder when the man started walking towards me, and he was moving pretty fast. I walked faster and soon made it to my car. When I was unlocking it and getting inside, I noticed that the man was now sprinting in my direction. That made me get in the car even faster. When I did, I immediately started the engine and began driving away. The man did not reach my car. I looked around to try to see him and just barely noticed him going out of sight in the parking lot, a ways away. I drove around to the exit and then went on one of the quiet roads. There were some roads that went sort of through the woods leading out of the park. You had to go pretty slow on them, and they were kind of winding. I drove on it, and about halfway to the park exit, I saw the guy coming out of the woods. He must have run there. He walked right into the middle of the street. When I saw him, I had to slow down. However, I was able to go around him, and he just stared at me. I got past him and soon left the park. After that, I called and reported him for his strange behavior. I'm not sure who that guy was or what he was doing, but it was very weird. This story takes place when I went to Yellowstone National Park with some friends. Obviously, the park is massive. There are hiking trails that you can go on, and that's what my group was planning to do. On the day of this story, we spent a total of 3 days in the area, and this was the final day. There were 7 of us in total, so a decent number of people. We started hiking on one of the trails. I don't recall exactly which one it was, but it went through a lot of woods and by some streams and things like that. It was one of the best trails that I've ever been on, and I was really enjoying it. My group soon got really split up, though. Everybody was kind of going at their own pace. Some people would stay back and look at something, while others kept on walking. I was one of the people that got caught in the back. For a while, it was just me and 2 other people, with the others out of sight. We didn't think too much of it, though. Then I stopped at a stream and thought that the others were also stopping. I was looking at something, but I soon realized that they hadn't stopped and had just kept on walking. Now, I was all by myself in the back. Still, it wasn't that big of a deal, because I thought I could just catch right back up to them. I started walking on the path again and walked at a fast pace so I could catch up. After the stream, the trail went through some dense woods. It wasn't long into that part that I suddenly heard a noise up ahead. I wasn't sure what it was, but then a woman emerged from the woods. I was confused, because I didn't recognize her. She walked out in front of me and asked if I could help her. I asked what was going on, and she said that her friend needed some help. She told me to follow her and started walking back into the woods. There was a very small trail leading into the woods that did not look like any kind of real trail. It was either an animal trail or just caused by the woman walking back there. I didn't know what the situation was with her friend needing help, but I followed her into the woods. It was pretty thick in there, and we were going over rocks and tall grass and stuff. The visibility was not the greatest. I kept following her farther and farther into the woods. This went on for probably close to 5 minutes. I couldn't believe how far back we were going. It made me wonder why she was so far back here in the first place. Then, finally, we came to this little clearing. The woman entered it, and I was about to, but what I saw were 2 large men just standing around. They were each wearing old white hockey goalie masks, the really creepy-looking ones. That was enough to make me instantly turn around and start running back. There was no friend needing help or anything, just 2 men in masks. I didn't even think about it and just started running, getting hit with tree branches left and right. I heard somebody start to run after me. This caused me to go even faster. I'm not sure who was chasing me, if it was just one of them or all 3 of them. Nobody said anything, but we were just running for a while. I didn't stop, and luckily, I was in pretty good shape and ran daily. I was able to keep going without stopping until I got back to the regular trail. By that point, I didn't really hear anybody running after me, and when I made it back to the trail, I went in the direction my friends had gone. Just moments later, I saw one of my friends coming back in my direction. She had been looking for me and asked what was going on. I told her to keep moving, and we both jogged for a while. When I was sure that we were not being chased or anything, I slowed down and told her the whole story. We decided to report it to park rangers, but the phone signal was going in and out, and it took a while before we could. We later caught up with the rest of the group, and I didn't let them out of my sight after that. For the rest of my time at Yellowstone, I didn't see those people, and I don't know exactly what was going on there. I'm hoping that it was nothing too bad, but I don't have an explanation for what it really was.